Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Ballology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Ballology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Ballology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
Well, talked a little bit about this time of year for you. Obviously, as a college coach, recruiting, full-time job just right there. So you have to be pretty organized, and I bet you got some daily habits that set you up for success. So what does that day look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is kind of corny, but I think perspective, guides everything. And I audibly say, and sometimes I put it on X as well, hoops for a job and sinner saved by grace. Those are two things that I don't always feel in that moment, but there are a whole lot worse things I could be doing than coaching basketball. So on those days that it is stressful, it's not as stressful as being a soldier or a heart surgeon or, digging ditches. Just being thankful that I get to do those things. And when things are going good, just remind myself this is exciting. I get to be a college basketball coach. So it's a little corny, but I try and say it every day. Sometimes I walk in the gym and yell it to our guys just to remind them, it may be a tough day, but there's a lot worse things that we could do. And then, like most dads, every morning I'm getting the kids ready for school, and I cherish those times, cooking them breakfast. That's dad and buddy's time, and drop them off, and then I'm like 45 minutes away from.
Oh wow!
So it's good and bad. I think I'm a podcast guy. I listen to yours as well, and I got some other ones that I like to listen to, or on the way to work, just to get ready and get in the mode. Sometimes I've got two guys I call every day, former boss of mine, Corey Baldwin, on the way in. Sometimes it ends up being our own little podcast of just talking some things through or talking ourselves off the ledge or things like that, and my dad, so having those consistent, conversations with people that are your mentors and you respect, and just, having that perspective of what you get to do really, really helps me on a daily basis. Those are my vitamins.
Man, love that word perspective. And you're right on the money. We ask our players all the time to remember that the relationship between get to and have to. And then guys, you get to be in the weight room. Like right. you get to run today. But how often do we switch that around and do we live by that? Like I get to go to a staff meeting instead of I have to go. And you're right on the money. Like, for those people that listen, I'm in sweats and tennis shoes. You're in a hat and in a polo, and I'm pretty sure like shorts most of the time. Like for me, and like it's pretty amazing that like hoops for a job. We love this game, but we actually get paid to do this, so we should approach every day that way.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking over the Easter weekend when I had to put on a coat and tie. I'm like, live every day in sweats. This is highly uncomfortable. I am so ready to get out of this. But no, I think it is just on the day. There are tough days. There are hard days, like in profession. But it's just, I think where some coaches that get in it can get out of coaching really easy is getting in that lounge talk that we all can be prey to. That teacher's lounge talk about the problems that we have. Everybody's got problems. Those guys on TV, they're getting paid millions of dollars, new levels, new devils, man, they got problems too. We don't need to live in that. As long as we're living in mostly the positive, I think, you can attack the day and get after and have good perspective. So I agree with you.
But like you said too, if you care enough about anything, with the level of care, I feel like sometimes the level of worry or stress also increases. So whether you're at a 5A TAPS private school like me, at a college like you, if we're trying to make the big time where we are, if we care about what we're doing, then we're going to care about those details, which brings on a level of stress. So one, it's like if there are coaches that feel that way, in my opinion, that's okay, but you can't let it get to a point where you lose perspective. And like me, probably 4 or 5 years ago, where you start to think, man, like, is this really what I want to do? Like, is this really worth it? I think we've all gone through that.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money with the care. Like if you care at all, if this is really what you're supposed to do, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be competitive. You're going to be angry. You're going to be worried. All those emotions are fine. I saw a really cool, I'm sure you've seen it. Most coaches have on Twitter or on X, where he takes the sponge and dips it in the cup of water. And he goes, that's our emotions. Like if I put this sponge in that cup of water and just let it sit in there, it's going to take a long time for me to get all that out. If I dip it in there, pretty quick ring out, right? Like we can dip in that negative and that worry and that frustration and that competitiveness and negativity. We can dip in there because we care. You know, we just live in there. We live in there. We're not getting productive. It's going to take a whole lot longer for us to get productive if we live in that. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have days, you're going to have moments, you know, you just need to have that mistake response ready to get right back to it.
And that's good. Yeah. I love that idea of the sponge. And I think when you're saying that, it really made me think about your why. Like, I think it comes down to your why, because the stress is going to be there if you care, but your why allows you to keep that perspective that you talked about at the very beginning. Yeah. Like when parents, administration, when things are seem to be just kind of going the opposite direction, you got to remember your why. And it goes right back to what we tell players. Players, when you're having a hard time, remember why you started. Coaches, when we're having a hard time, remember why we started. And it was typically one, a love for the game, but also a love for teaching the game, wanting to see young people's lives transformed and wanting to have a small part of that. Golly, coach, like remembering our why, can't imagine a bigger thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you kind of got to burn the boats a little bit on what you're doing. If you give yourself an out that, you know, if this doesn't work, and you know, there's going to be days where you're ready for that out. You hear comedians talk about like, I have to be a comedian because I don't really know what else I would ever do. You know, that's how I feel. My dad, you know, was a coach. He's a minister as well, but I literally couldn't see myself doing anything other than this. So, you know, hope I get to keep doing it for players too. Like I want so many good coaches out there, you know, that hadn't gotten opportunities. So, you know, we don't need any that are negative and taken for granted what they got, because there's a million of them that would take your job today that would do a good job.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we forget that, and I forgot that. Only a small group of coaches. You kind of talked about that community of coaches that you have, which I do think is so important. But the small group of coaches that I have, we call ourselves the bots, the brothers of the sword, and we just a few coaches that we Marco Polo together. It's been going on for like 5 years now. So this you know, and every few days we'll get on there, and but man, they know this. But part of me doing these talks, I want it to be authentic and real, and not hold back struggles or just try to act like I know what I'm talking about or know what I'm doing. You know, like you and we all struggle and we all have those moments. And so a few years ago, it's right around COVID, I just didn't know. I didn't know if this was something that I could do for a long time, if the level of care and the stress, you know, or if obviously we're not in it for the money, you know, is there something else? And so because of COVID, I got to dabble, and I got my real estate license. And for about 8 months, while I still had my job here, but it felt very different, looked different. Man, I went out and I sold 3 homes. One was my in-laws and stuff. So that was kind of an easy one. But, you know, I worked really, really hard during those 8 months. And I realized that if there's no basketball in it, like my heart's not in it. And, you know, I had to go out, even with like playing and coaching for a while, like I had to go out and try something else to realize that. And I don't know. I'm not saying that every coach should do that, but but to me, it's more like learn from it. Like going back to the very beginning, hoops for a job. Like the fact that we get paid to do this, man, like there are other ways to make money, more money. And I saw that, the potential there, but basketball wasn't in it.
No doubt. Like, what are your values in, man? What do you value? I definitely, we all would like to make money and take care of our families. And I think you can do that in hoops. And there's a million stories of coaches doing other things like that. I'm thinking of Chad Warner over at Furman, who was a banker for, a year and just said, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. Or you're those coaches that are driving trucks at night to keep the dream alive. I love that stuff. And, because I do think you get grounded in your roots about, like, if I really want to do this, I've kind of seen both sides of the table. I like it over here better. What do I got to do to make this everything and make it where I can do a career? And you may do a really good job at it and get fired. Can you land back on your feet? Some of it's, luck. The harder I work, the luckier I get. So, yeah, no, I completely agree.
Man, that's a sobering thought right there, is that we can give our very, very best and try to do everything correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we may not have as good of a team as others. And because of the climate of win now or success at all costs, I mean, you see it this time of year. It seems like on every time I turn on ESPN News or whatever, at the bottom, the new job, new hire. But there's a flip side to every new hire, is that there was a new fire that just happened right there, and so it's one of the, like, gratitude. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Gratitude for having the opportunities we have today. Make the most of it, because as good as we can be, man, it's not guaranteed.
No doubt.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.